All right, welcome everyone to Ironman 70.3 Rockford, Illinois, the first ever Ironman event in the state of Illinois. A very exciting time. Hopefully we have some excited athletes, more than we have our nervous athletes, but we're going to do a quick swim tip talk to get you guys ready and excited and thinking about race day before the course talk starts here a little bit later today. My name is Coach Chris NAVIN. I'm part of the TriDot coaches, Ironman U coaches, and a local Chicago coach. And if you have questions, what we're going to do is we're going to give you guys some swim tips, things to focus on, and then we're going to wrap up if anyone wants to have a demo on putting a wetsuit on and any wetsuit tips. We'll do some little show and tell down here. But I just want to take the time to welcome everyone to the Ironman event. And quick show of hands, I know we got people still streaming in here, but is anyone here doing their first ever half Ironman? I want you to raise your hand. I can kind of see under the tent. Nice. Anyone here that is nervous about the swim, raise your hand. Nobody? Oh, at least one. Yeah. The swim is always the most nerve-wracking part of the race. It's okay, even the experienced athletes. I've done over 50 Ironman events, over 20 fulls. I still get a little nervous before the start. It's good to have that kind of anxiety in a good way, because that means you're really thinking about what you're about to do and focused. So I'm going to give you guys a couple different tips, especially for dealing with that swim. All right, tip number one. First thing is make sure you get to the race early. If you arrive late, you're always going to feel a little bit more rushed. And oftentimes you take into consideration how much time you might want just to get everything set up. If we have to go from our transition area down here over to the swim start, you're always going to need a little bit more time. You want to come in the morning, set up your bike. You want to use the restroom. You need time to get in your wetsuit once you get over to the swim start area, right? There's a shuttle bus as well that takes you from the transition over to the swim start. And then you want to line up before the race starts. You want to line up based on your swim start time. So with all that taken into account, think about planning your race morning if you haven't already. Work backwards from the time you want to be lined up, maybe about 20 to 30 minutes before the race actually starts. Think about how much time you want to put that wetsuit on, how much time it might take to take the shuttle bus over, how much time you might want to take to go to the restroom one last time, and then finally how much time you need to set up your transition area. So work backwards from there. My general recommendation as a coach of many athletes over the years is to try to arrive shortly after transition opens. Don't arrive in the last 30 minutes when transition is getting ready to close, because everything will take a little bit longer. Getting through the lines, going through the porta potties, all that. If you arrive early, that means you're going to have more time to think everything through, more time to deal with anything, whether it's anxiety, a little technical thing, bike setup, pumping your tires. So give yourself plenty of time. And with that in mind, plan to get to bed earlier, even starting tonight. Set a bedtime, set your alarm so that tonight you're starting to get in that habit of getting to bed really early, so that wake up call on race morning is not too early so that it's affecting your sleep. Make sure you plan when to get to bed and try to hold yourself to that, because you will be thinking about things, you'll be packing things, you'll have a lot of little details you want to hash out. So that's the first tip. Make sure you get plenty of time to yourself to get everything ready. The second thing is to really just realize that you have done what it takes to call yourself a half Ironman. You've done the training. The journey is mostly done. Race day is just a victory lap. So with that in mind, just have fun out there. Just think about smiling. When you get nervous, just say, hey, you've done all the work. You've gotten to the fitness level you need to be. Race day is just one giant victory lap with 2,700 of your closest Speedo and latex and wetsuit clad friends. And you're just going to pick up your finisher medal. I joke around, I call it the one day in your life where you can eat and drink all day long and you're still gonna lose weight at the end of the day, right? It's a victory lap. So remind yourself, smile, have fun. When you get to that swim start and you start getting a little nervous, look over to the person to your right, left, right, and do that right now, actually. Look over, see if you can identify somebody next to you. Look at them in the eyes, give them a thumbs up, tell them good luck, maybe give them a fist bump, because that's what you should do when you're in that swim start in the morning. Have fun, make friends, help reduce that anxiety, not just for yourself, but for others as well. And when you're out there, thank the volunteers too. Oftentimes when you give that energy out, when you thank somebody, you get that energy back in return. And that really does make your race day experience that much better. So you do that before the swim start, and I guarantee you're gonna have a great experience doing this swim. All right, now let's actually talk about when you get into the water. One of the most important things, if you haven't already, I assume most of you have, but make sure you go and look over the course. Know where that swim start is, up by the Rockmen statues on the other side of the river, just north of here. That's where you're gonna be getting in, and you're gonna have that nice, hopefully strong river current to take you down. Look at a map. When you get down here, walk around the river, look back. If you wanna walk up to the swim start, walk up to the swim start later, and look at the sight lines. Think about if you're gonna be swimming from one side of the river to the other, you know, there are gonna be buoys out there that'll guide you, but with a river swim in particular, you wanna know how you can maximize your potential on that river swim. And generally speaking, most rivers are always deeper in the middle of the river. So when you're starting that swim, you want to try to follow the buoys, but also try to stay, if you want a fast swim, towards the middle channel of the river for most of the swim. And as you get closer to the finish, don't stay in the middle. Don't stay with the strong current. Drift over, follow the buoys, go to the exit. There's gonna be plenty of volunteers that will guide you along, but there's still a pretty wide area within that between all of the kayaks, the stand-up paddleboards, the water support, and the buoys. So think about if you really wanna maximize that speed of a river swim, think about knowing the course, swimming down that middle channel as much as you can, whether that's being right in line with the buoys or a little bit over from the side of them, and sight to objects far into the horizon. So if you do walk up there, or if you pull up Google Maps, you just look at the course profile, think about when you get in that swim and you start sighting, what landmarks are you gonna be looking for? And you do have a couple bridges that you're going to be going under. So look at the bridges. You always want to sight to an object furthest in the horizon, not something right in front of you. If you want to be able to swim as straight as possible, it's always better to pick a more stationary object further in the horizon. And as you get closer to the finish, we have the lovely Embassy Suites building, one of the tallest buildings around here. That's going to be part of your sight line potentially. But as you're approaching the bridges, think about using the columns of the bridge. Right? If you want, like I said, if you do walk down there, take a look at the swim start, take a look at what that first sight line might be for you, and know the course, right? It's always the athlete's responsibility to know the course. And there will be a full course briefing right after this, but always give yourself time to learn about how that course might be different. If you ever do a different race, same idea. If you want to learn where the current is the strongest, you know, closer to shore and all that, think about that. But that's the unique part of the river swims. Maximize it by staying in that strongest part of the channel if you can. All right, now you might get a little nervous when you do the swim. Anyone here, by the way, I think I asked earlier, but quick show of hands, is anyone doing their first ever river swim? Not first Ironman, but first ever river swim. Ah, nice, we got a few more. All right, and anyone else here who kind of came in the last couple minutes, anyone doing their very first Ironman, raise your hand. Awesome. And how about anyone doing their very first triathlon ever? Raise your hand. Ah, there we go. The true first timers. I love it. So when you get in that swim, yeah, you might get a little nervous. The most important thing is to realize it's not a race of speed as much as it is a race of endurance. So when you get in that swim, take your time, right? You don't have to go full speed right off the bat. get that heart rate jacked up. You got a long day and it's going to be hot. So in the swim, you want to try to keep that core body temperature as low as possible, because you might end up a little dehydrated by the time you get out of the swim. Even though you're in the water, you're going to be heating up a lot. Whether or not you're using a wetsuit, it is going to be a warmer swim. I think the official temperature this morning was 75 degrees, in case anyone is curious. So just below that wetsuit threshold, but sun, hot temperature, it is going to warm up. So it's just a question of how much it drops overnight and then how much it comes back up before race day. So it's going to be close. It's going to be close in terms of water temperature to that 76.1 degree threshold for being wetsuit legal for awards. But that probably means if you really need that wetsuit, you're probably going to be able to use it. You'll just be starting at the back of the pack, up to 83 plus degrees. I doubt, I don't know, don't hold me to it, but you'll probably be able to use those wetsuits. That said, once you get in that swim and you're trying to stay calm and you're trying to avoid overheating, first most important thing, always establish your buoyancy. Make yourself as long as possible and then get your first breath. Don't jump in and just start taking 10, 20 strokes without breathing, right? If your breathing falls behind, that's just gonna make you a little more nervous. So the biggest tip I have always is just breathe, and just breathe big. Do a big exhale, do a big inhale. Sometimes people forget when you're breathing with freestyle swimming, it's a little different than breathing when you don't have water all around you, and your body might want to do something different. You might swallow a little bit of water by accident. So my biggest tip for that first breath is blow out your nose like you're blowing a snot rocket, like hard nasal exhale. That's what's gonna clear water away from your mouth. That's gonna get that CO2 that's building out, and it's gonna cause you to wanna take that nice, big, deep breath in. Breathe with your diaphragm. Don't breathe shallow. Make sure you get good, big, deep breaths right off the bat. You start with nice breathing and an easy stroke. You can get your rhythm established, and there is always time to pick up that pace if you want to later on. But start slow, establish your buoyancy, and take that first big breath. Now, if you do get nervous, if you haven't done an Ironman event, or if you haven't done a triathlon, this is your first triathlon, there are a lot of water support out there. There are boats, there are lifeguards. I don't know if we have, and we'll see in the course briefing, they'll probably talk about it. Sometimes they even have like just a floating, what we call it, a lily pad you can go and hold on to. And you are, if you didn't know, you are allowed to go over and hold on to the water support if you need to. If you need to take a quick break, something happened, you swallowed too much water, goggles, who knows what happened, you can go and hold on. You can just tell the lifeguard, hey, I just need a minute to catch my breath, and then you can continue on. The only thing they are not allowed to do is take you along with them. They can't give you forward progress. No free distance, unfortunately, from the water support. But you can take as much time as you need to hold on and establish yourself. So always have that as a plan B situation in your head. If something happens, hey, just drift on over, find the nearest lifeguard support, whether it's a boat, stand-up paddleboard, whatever it might be, just drift over, hold on, tell them, hey, I just need to catch my breath, and then continue on. So you'll always have that in the back of your mind. One other thing, and I'll mention this more when we talk about actually putting wetsuits on, is anyone here, just out of curiosity, planning to use a wetsuit for their very first time in the race? Raise your hand. Anybody? Hopefully you have used, I don't see anybody. Okay, that's good. Because ideally you should always use gear that you've already used, right? Nothing new on race day. But if you haven't used a wetsuit a lot and you're planning to use a wetsuit particularly, pay attention to any part that might give you a little chafing. It's very common that people get a little chafing around the neck. So if you don't want to have any irritation, look in the shop. They might have Body Glide or some type of lubricant to put on to make it less likely to cause chafing, especially with the heat. You'll be sweating a lot, and the more you sweat, the more that risk of chafing is there. Another tip, even though it's going to be very, very hot, and if you are using a wetsuit, for those using a wetsuit, make sure you don't put the wetsuit on too early and start overheating before you actually get in the water, right? Different condition races, sometimes if it's a cold water swim, we encourage you to put the wetsuit on early, pre-fill the wetsuit. A wetsuit is designed to get wet. That's why they call it a wetsuit. You want water to get inside the suit, and your body warms that water up, and that's what keeps you warm. It's not designed to keep water out. Wetsuits get water in them intentionally. So if you're someone who doesn't like cold water, you would actually pre-fill your wetsuit, you'd put it on early. Because of the temperature of this water, I might not recommend doing that necessarily. It's up to you. But what I would recommend doing is splashing water on your exposed skin. Because if you do have the sun heating up your skin, and then you get in that water, even though it's relatively warm, you might still have a little bit of that cold water shock feeling. And if you get water on your skin, especially if the wind's blowing a little bit, it'll help drop your skin temperature and help avoid that shock feeling when you get into the water. So just having an extra water bottle splash on your face, splash on your hands, on your wrists, that will help to lower your skin temperature before you get in, so you're not kind of in a little bit of a shock once you go into that cold, cold water. All right. One other wetsuit tip. If you're someone who hasn't used a wetsuit a lot, make sure you pull the wetsuit up all the way. I'm going to show a little plastic bag trick on how to get your wetsuit on after this, so if you're curious about that. But one issue we commonly see with people using wetsuits, if they haven't used them often, is they don't pull the legs up high enough, and then the wetsuit material is pulling down on your shoulders. Same thing if you're using a swim skin instead of a wetsuit, right? Those are tight compressive suits that you might use in place of a wetsuit. If you don't pull it up all the way, it might pull down on your shoulders and cause a little constriction. So make sure you pull it all the way up in the crotch, pull everything all the way up, get the material on. That way it's not going to pull on your shoulders. You don't want to be fighting the material every stroke that you're taking. So make sure if you're putting that wetsuit on, you get it up all the way. One other thing as you're getting prepared to actually go into the water, make sure you loosen up, right? If you have a wetsuit on or if you have a swim skin on, it might be a little bit compressive. Sometimes your shoulders just standing around there get a little tight. And even if you don't have the space in a big crowd to do, arm swings, arm rotations, arm stretches, what you can do is just a couple shoulder rolls. Roll your shoulders back, roll your shoulders forward, work on that shoulder mobility, because especially with the material of a wetsuit, if you have one, it will affect your ability to reach. And if you haven't loosened up your shoulders before you start that swim, you'll be a little bit tight. So if you just roll the shoulders back, roll the shoulders forward, that will help you loosen up for that race day swim. All right, now let's talk about actually getting in the water and what to focus on. So we get in, start slow. If you need to, right, it's a kind of a rolling, we call it time trial start. You go into the water a couple athletes at a time, every couple seconds. It'll just continue to flow through. While there are a lot of people, it's not crazy chaotic like older Ironman events. We used to have hundreds of people at once all starting together. This is a much more gradual start. If you do need time, just tread water. You don't need to start swimming fast. You can drift off to the side, compose yourself, and then start. Make sure you got your breathing in check. Make sure you got your buoyancy. You're stretching yourself out nice and long before you start picking up that pace, especially because, like I said, it's going to be a hot one out there this weekend. All right, once you start swimming, if you want something to focus on, my favorite mantra to have when you start your swim is long and strong. What we oftentimes see when people start their first kind of mass triathlon swim start event, or a first one in a while, if you haven't done one yet this season and you're an experienced triathlete, you might still want to have a couple things to focus on. And long and strong helps you to focus on making sure you're reaching forward. And if you're long, you're pushing your shoulder forward, and that allows you to turn and breathe easier. If you don't reach with the front shoulder, the back shoulder doesn't move back, and it doesn't allow you to turn and breathe as easily. So think long reach in the front and a strong finish in the back. If anyone has done our TriDot pool schools, we teach a lot on the technique. And one of the things we say is at the end of your stroke, when your hand comes out of the water, you want your thumb touching your thigh and the palm of your hand facing the sky. But when people get nervous in a mass swim start environment, what we see people do is instead of finishing their stroke fully, they pull the arm up early and they just swim in front of themselves like this. So make sure a long reach, and a strong, strong finish. Long and strong, long and strong. Have that be your mantra for maybe the first 100, 200 yards to really get your rhythm established. Keep that stroke rate low, focus on gliding. Then you can always pick up the pace later. Has anyone here ever done as a swimming drill, a drill called the catch-up stroke? Raise your hand. At least half, a lot of people have not. So the catch-up stroke, if you're not familiar, is probably one of the best drills to do in a mass swim environment. The catch-up stroke is where you have a full arm stroke coming all the way around, catching up to the other hand before you take your next stroke. So you do one full stroke at a time. Instead of regular freestyle, you might pull this arm back as this arm enters the water. So you're catching up, almost tagging your hand before you take your next stroke. And that full catch-up stroke is actually something that we use as a defensive swimming technique tactic when you're around a lot of people, because you always have one hand in front of your head. And if you always have one hand in front of your head, you are protecting yourself from getting too close to somebody else, because that arm acts as a natural barrier between your head and their foot kicking you. And if you're a competitive athlete trying to set a PR, doing the catch-up stroke is something that strategically allows you to feel the bubbles of other people's kicks more often, and you can draft off of other people better. So I highly recommend, if you want one drill to have in your head for the swim, especially at the start, think about doing the catch-up drill, the catch-up stroke. Long and strong with a catch-up stroke. That is a great thing to just have in the back of your head, maybe for the entire swim if you need it. It'll help you stay calm, it'll help you glide, it'll help you protect yourself. So if you want that one swim thing to focus on while you're swimming, try to do that catch-up stroke. All right, if something happens, goes wrong, just so that you know, you can raise your hand, you can yell at any of the kayakers. Sometimes people will take their goggle off or their swim cap off and wave it. Hopefully that won't happen for anybody here, but just have a plan B scenario in your head. If something does go wrong, maybe you bump into somebody you didn't expect, maybe your goggles snapped, maybe they filled up with water, something went wrong. What do you do? I like to call this having a plan B. And it can be a stroke, right? It can be a floating on your back. If anyone's done the elementary backstroke, we call it, when you're floating on your back and you have your arms just go up, out the side, and down. It's like doing a snow angel in the water. That is a great way to just float on your back, and then you can adjust your goggles, fix your goggles in case something goes wrong. So even though hopefully nothing will go wrong for anybody, if you run through that scenario in your head, you'll feel ready for it, and if something happens, it won't freak you out. You'll keep that heart rate low. But you can do any stroke. If you didn't know that, it doesn't have to be freestyle. You can do backstroke. You can do breaststroke. The breaststroke will wear your legs out, and it might kick your neighbors a little bit too much. So we don't necessarily recommend the other strokes as much. But if you need to, go to them. You can also just keep your head up. Do regular, what we call Tarzan style swimming with your head up out of the water. It's a lot slower, but with the river current, it might be fine. You can also do side stroke, keeping your head up out of the water and just gliding, hands together and off to the side. We use that when we try to rescue somebody, put an arm around somebody and swim with them. So just have one type of plan B scenario in the back of your mind, and that will help you have the confidence, just in case something goes wrong, that you know what to do. All right. Now, a couple tips in case you guys are, anyone here by curiosity, I know I see a couple people, anyone here attend a TriDot pool school before? Any TriDot athletes? Oh, I see a couple in the front. Cool. So if you want, for those who've done the pool school or those that want a quick snapshot of it, we give people a tip to use to make sure that they are focusing on their form, and it's called swimming fast. Fingers flat, arm aligned, shoulders slanted, spine straight, and then thumb on your thigh, palm to the sky. It's a little acronym we use. And for those of you who've done the pool school, maybe throw that in the back of your mind as you're out there swimming. And if you're not, just think, hey, flat arm in the front, keep that hand, fingertips pointed forward, every hand entry. And when you finish every stroke, fingertips pointed back. That's going to really help you focus on that long and strong form. All right. I think that's it for most of the swim tips. I am going to do a little bit of a wetsuit demo for putting a wetsuit on, and then we're going to answer some questions. And then a little bit later at 3 o'clock, we are going to do a course talk. But I want to give you just a couple final tips, maybe some homework before we do that, to get you ready for race day. A couple things to do just on your checklist. If you haven't already, make sure you get your bike checked out, do a little spin ride. Sometimes people forget to do that. Make sure all the gear is working, the tires are inflated. If you can do that today, do that today so you can deal with any last minute issues tomorrow. So check over your bike. If anyone hasn't yet checked out the TriDot app, there's something called RaceX. It's a race execution tool. I'll have a few cards up here if anybody wants this, but what I would recommend, whether you're someone who uses TriDot or another training plan tool, you can input your numbers, your fitness from whatever swim, bike, or run you've done this season in there, and it will estimate exactly based on the course and especially based on the heat and humidity what your potential splits will be. It'll take the elevation profile into account, it'll take the updated weather forecast into account, and it'll give you a rough prediction of what your swim, bike, and run split will be. The reason I mention that is if you do have any friends or family spectating and you don't want them to get too nervous about you, if you're going to be a little bit slower in the heat, you can input those numbers, get a predicted time, and then see on race day how close to that estimate you might be able to go. But it'll also give you some tips on how to deal with the heat. And that's going to be one of the biggest challenges, right? This course is nice. We got a relatively flat bike course. We have a downriver swim. We have a really nice spectator-friendly run course. There's plenty of sections with shade along the run as well. And the only real challenge is going to be that heat. But you've done the training. This is not a challenge of speed. This is a challenge of endurance and completion more than anything else. So looking ahead to this weekend and that heat that might make you nervous, just realize that means you get to go at a much more social and fun pace. You get to go slow and steady. You get to high-five each other. You get to cheer on those spectators. And so if you do struggle out there, I wanted to give you a couple final tips for dealing with the heat. Number one, make sure you're hydrating a lot, but not just water. Use the electrolytes on course. Stick to the electrolytes as often as you can. Don't just drink water. You don't want to dilute everything in your body. So before the swim, I would highly recommend in the 1 hour at least or more, 1 or 2 hours or anytime on race morning, make sure you are pre-hydrating with at least 1 full water bottle. And if you want, I know we got sweat testing over here as well, but try to get up to 1 gram or 1,000 milligrams of sodium in before the start. Pre-hydrate before you start the swim because you can get dehydrated in a warm water swim with the warm sun if you're in there for a long time. And you don't want to start the bike dehydrated. So plan to have that extra bottle of hydration before you start the swim. Maybe even plan to have an extra bottle in transition next to your bike. You're probably going to want to consume at least 2 bottles per hour on the bike. So think about the aid stations, right? Every 15 to 20 miles-ish. Are you going to grab 1 bottle or 2 bottles at those aid stations? And if the conditions are really tough, I recommend pulling over, make sure you get 2 full bottles and continue on. It's worth it to go a little bit slower and make sure you're hydrating appropriately all throughout the day, from before the race starts to in the transitions to on the bike and on the run as well. Early and often, especially early, make sure you are hydrating extra. Now, another tip I have when you start the run to keep that core body temperature down for dealing with the heat, The hottest half Ironman I did, I'm curious if anyone's done one hotter than this. You can raise your hand if you did. I did two races that were over 110 degrees. 115 degree heat index was the hottest half Ironman I did. Has anyone beaten that? There were a couple events that have gone higher than that. Nobody? All right. So one of my biggest tips, if you're on the run and you're struggling for dealing with the heat, especially at the end of the day, you're already dehydrated, you're running along, is to pay attention to your breathing rate. When you're running in the heat, you want to take all your heart rate zones, your effort levels down to avoid your core body temperature going up. And so I encourage you, if you've never focused on your breathing rate, pay attention to how many steps you take as you breathe out, how many steps you take as you breathe in. That's your breathing ratio. If you are breathing at a rate of 2 steps, like inhale 2 steps, exhale 2 steps, you're probably in zone 5. Your heart rate is way too high. If you can keep your breathing rate to the point where you're taking 4 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhaling, and then 1, 2, 3, inhaling, we call it 4-3 asymmetric breathing rate, your breathing is much more controlled. Your pace is a lot lower. Your core body temperature will stay lower, and you'll be able to survive that heat, and you'll adapt to the heat. So pay attention to your breathing rate as that might change in the heat. One of the biggest struggles I see a lot of athletes have dealing with the heat is they get tired, they get exhausted, they get dehydrated, and then your breathing gets shallower. And if your breathing gets shallower, you're not getting enough oxygen in, your body's not going to cool itself down, you're not going to be able to create as much energy. So think oxygen is fuel. Focus on your breathing. That'll remind you to breathe in through your nose, exhale through your mouth. That will help you to cool down. So if you're struggling on the run, I'm going to be out there racing with you guys. So if you see me out there, feel free to give me a high five and just breathe. Take those big, deep breaths. And that's a great way to survive the run, especially when you're struggling quite a bit. Breathe deep. Race day is just a victory lap. It's a time to celebrate. You've done the training. You guys are ready for this. You're just going to have a big, giant party with a bunch of your closest new friends. So look over to the person on your left. Give them a fist bump. Look over to the person on your right. Wish them good luck. Give them a fist bump. And I'll see you guys out there. All right. So we got a couple of minutes before the course talk. I am going to come up here if anyone does want a quick demo or some tips on putting a wetsuit on, or if you want that information or that link about RaceX and trying to predict your splits in the heat, let me know. I'm going to hang out here, and then in about 10 minutes or so, I think we'll be doing the official course briefing, so you can feel free to hang out in the shade if you want. But if you have questions, feel free. I'll be up here off to the side. I'll see you guys out there. There's also, by the way, some good talks coming up throughout this weekend. We got a few other coaches coming up talking about the bike and a bunch of other things, so feel free to check that out. But thanks, guys, and good luck out there. Hey there. I'm going to move over a little bit because of the speakers.
The predictive part?
Yeah, the predictive. I got one.
You know what the water temperature is today?
75 degrees.
What's the cutoff for wetsuits?
76.1. So it's going to be close. You
The relay team?
won't know until race morning, basically. Yeah.
Will you let us know in the morning?
In the morning, when you come to transition, they'll make the announcements. If anyone wants the RaceX cards,
Sure.
they'll make the announcement because they do the official temperature reading in the
When
morning,
does the first group go in the water?
7
Do
a.m.
the relays go last?
No, I believe the relays are all part of the same. It's all self-seated
it's
based
self-seated
on
by
predicted time. Yep.
Okay.
So if you want to start early to beat the heat,
Maybe I'll get my bike rider out of it.
get set up early, get over there early. Yep.
Great. And if I'm on a relay team, it really doesn't matter if I wear a wetsuit or not, because I can't qualify for anything else. I just want to.
Yeah. If it's not, not for qualification, well, age group awards, I don't know if that would disqualify your team from potentially an award. But awards don't really matter
How do you work the age?
How do you?
How do you work the age? Do you average the team?
Or no, it's not necessarily age. It's just team award. I don't know if they do it. Sometimes they do it by combined age group. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
In the course briefing that'll be coming, they might have the answer to that.
All right, that's cool.
But yeah, yeah. Good luck. Cool. Any other questions? Oh, you got?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Do you know what the flow is like in the river?
I don't. Everyone's been looking at it and trying to estimate. Some people said it felt a little bit slow, but it's hard to tell, and it'll really just depend on the rain. Like it can be really fast. When I measured it, it was I think 1.5 miles an hour, but that was like last year and a couple times when I visited. So it was around that. So most people I would estimate will be 20% faster, give or take. But it's hard to say for sure.
I'm just wondering when start on the left side of the bank and move over to the right side. I don't want to overshoot the turn and have to swim against.
They'll do a pretty good job of, and the goal is like as soon as you see the building, like keep that in the back of your eye. As you start getting close to Embassy Suites, realize that the exit is actually going to be right by where this bridge is here, and you can walk down and kind of check it out. I haven't actually gone down myself yet. And just make sure that when you get to that bridge, that's when you want to be over to the side. But they'll have a lot of buoys, so I wouldn't be too worried about overshooting the exit.
Like coming in here and then going, way to the right.
Yeah,
Having to swim against the current.
There'll be tons of volunteers and people out there to guide you off to the side. But as long as you keep in mind, you got the building to look at and you've got the bridge. So just remember when you come up to this bridge, you want to be a little bit closer in to the side.
A little bit to the right.
Yeah. But if you want, feel free to walk, go up the path on the other side and take a look at the sight lines, and you can kind of see the pillars of the bridge, and that way you're visually connecting yourself with that course.
I'll do that tomorrow. Yeah, because I do see there's like a decent, maybe that's just the wind, but it does look like. Yeah,
it's always hard to tell because if the wind is coming from the south, it might actually look like the current is going upriver, but the actual flow of the river is always underneath the surface. So the top layer might look like it's going that way, but the actual flow of the river is going that way. A good way to judge it is actually if you walk down the path a little bit further, like the start of the run course, you'll see there's the dam where the water is going over like a little waterfall, and you can see what the flow looks like based on just looking at that. I haven't gone down there yet, but I'm planning to do that later to see just how strong that current is. And based on the rain, that's usually what will cause it to be stronger or weaker.
Sure. Yeah, wonderful.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You have a question?
I have a question, yes. I joined a little late because I was stuck in the registration. My husband was here. He's not an athlete, so he was kind of taking notes for me. He said something about if you're wearing a wetsuit, you have to line up in the back.
So the temperature right now is at 75 degrees.
Okay.
As long as it's under 76.1, then everyone can line up together, same old.
Yep.
If it's above 76.1, only people without a wetsuit will get to go first.
Okay.
And then we call it the party wave in the back.
Okay, so
people with the wetsuit will just have to wait.
Because then they're not eligible.
Not eligible for awards.
How do you determine that?
That's why they separate it, is because then they can reset the timing mat. And so anyone who starts after that time, like they'll make a little time gap. Anyone who starts after that won't be eligible for awards.
What about a swim skin?
Swim skins are fine, yeah. As long as there's no neaprene, that's the threshold. Yep.
Okay.
So most people, I imagine, will be wearing swim skins, or it'll probably be like 50-50, like maybe, a quarter to a half of people.
But I am going for a podium spot.
Yeah, so then
Would you recommend I buy a swim skin?
You could. I mean, it depends on how competitive you are and if you think you're doing more events like this in the future. But because there might be a strong current, the swim skin might not, spread the field out as much in terms of like giving you an advantage.
Okay. So I might just be fine racing in my kit?
Yeah, a lot of people will be racing just in their kits.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're super competitive and you want to get that spot.
I'm actually not that strong of a swimmer. I'm just a good biker. But that's good to know. Like the swim skin would offer more advantage in like a lake where there's no current.
Yeah, because it just makes you more hydrophobic. Like it's that water resistant material, right?
Yeah.
If you're wearing a kit that can absorb a lot of moisture, and it might balloon up a little bit more, like as you're swimming against it. Different parts like pockets and things like that exposed will create a little bit of drag. The swim skin just provides that compressive layer to make you physically smaller and more hydrophobic. So you will be a little bit faster, but it's not going to be like super dramatic. But it all depends on your pace and your swimming style and like everything else. So
did they say when like they'll make the final call? Is it the morning?
In the morning of, They'll usually take the temperature reading before transition opens, and then as people are coming in, usually within
leave your wetsuit in your morning bag if you're not going to wear it.
So they'll make the announcement usually like within 15 to 30 minutes as people are coming in. They'll make that first announcement, and then everyone will clap or be upset. But yeah, it'll be in the morning basically when transition opens. Shortly thereafter, they'll announce it.
Gotcha.
But they might post it in the app as well. So if you download the app and you look at the notifications part, they'll sometimes post that ahead of time on there. So you might be able to find out before you even come down. If they post it on there.
Anything else that I just got the last part of the siding, the bridges and stuff, the distance, and the swimming in the middle until close to the end. That's what my husband shared. Did I miss anything big?
No, I was just giving some general tips about gliding. Hey, how's it going? Good.
I thought I saw you earlier, and then I wasn't sure it was you, and I'm like, I think there's somebody that looks kind of like you here.
There might be.
I'm like, it's the beard.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, I just gave a whole bunch of different rant like that, like the catch-up stroke, like doing a more defensive swim stroke, or if you're a competitive athlete, to be able to feel the bubbles, of someone else's kick and to be able to draft off of them a little more effectively. That was one of the tips. And then, just if you do get the opportunity, go walk down and just look at the sight lines, like get an idea for where the bridges are, and just so that you have that mental reference point for race day.
But are you doing this again tomorrow?
Yes, same talk. Yep.
I'm sorry, I will come to. Cause I just, I'll just come.
Yeah, I think tomorrow it's at.
I don't mean to do my own private.
Oh no, it's fine. I think it'll be at 1 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay, what's your name?
Chris. Coach Chris. Yeah.
Nice to
Shannon.
meet you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Good luck. Sorry, let me move my crap out of the way.
Everyone, we're going to start in just a couple minutes after we do a little sound check.
Grab all